Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar this morning. We have two presenters today in this session, Kim Reed from Oregon Education Association and Colin Stapp from Shemakta Community College. Kim and Colin are going to discuss developing effective professional development across multiple institutions. We are very excited about this topic. Today we also have Anna Thompson and Nina Fox from the board joining me as co-hosts. The three of us will help monitor the chat and Q&A areas. You're all muted during the webinar, but if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please feel free to send them our way. We'll be watching them very closely. And we don't have closed captioning for the live event, but closed captioning will be added in post-production. Okay, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kim and Colin.
Thank you. We're excited to be here. I'm Kim Reed, and I'm really happy to be joined by Colin Stapp today. Before we get started, I want to again encourage everyone to submit any questions or comments in the chat or use the Q&A feature. Our style is very informal, so we would like this to be somewhat of a discussion, and we're happy to address your questions both as they come in where that's possible and appropriate, and then we'll have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. If you are using the chat, you'll want to look at the arrow toggle to choose who you're sending your question to. So if it's something that you'd like everyone to see in the chat, please choose the option for all panelists and attendees. So on our next slide, we have an agenda to share with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as we go through our presentation, as Kim mentioned, feel free to post those questions. We will give just a brief overview, Kim will, about OEA. We'll talk about the need for professional development and why it's important, and the research out there. Talk about the course design for the course that we offered through the OEA, and then about teaching the course when I taught it this summer, some lessons learned, and then some of the feedback that we got after the course as well.
So as Colin said, I'm going to provide some background information that will set the stage for that course that Colin wrote and instructed. So OEA has been around since 1858. We're a union that represents about 44,000 educators in the state of Oregon, and our members range in all ages in terms of their students, so pre-K through community college. We represent both classified as well as certified educators. About 3,700 of those members are at community colleges. And in the past year, we had about 3,800 member engagements in our varied professional development. So our community college members are located at 10 different institutions across the state of Oregon. You can see from this map, they're spread out throughout the state in both urban and rural areas. They also vary quite a bit in size. So schools like Shemakta and Clackamas have a head count of over 20,000 students, and then smaller schools like Clatsop on the North Coast have a head count of about 2,500 students. Some of the main activities of OEA are to ensure fair and strong contracts, to advocate for educator members and students on issues such as equity and adequate funding and safe, welcoming, and inclusive schools. We also provide legal support as needed. And then we also provide or draw attention to professional development opportunities for our members. So on this slide, you'll see some of the varied professional learning opportunities that we do internally at OEA for our members. They are almost entirely member-led professional learning, so our members are our facilitators and instructors. Our opportunities are free as a benefit of active membership. And you'll see, it varies quite a bit. We do some very large in-person conferences, and then we do things like self-paced online modules, micro-credentials, year-long academies, virtual learning communities. So in 2019, we did a needs assessment of our community college members. You can see I've sort of broken out the results of that needs assessment by classified staff and by faculty. And these were some of the largest areas of need expressed in that needs assessment. So for classified staff, what sort of rose to the top in those survey results were technology and leadership. And on the technology side, it was mostly specific platforms that staff are required to use as part of their job. And their thoughts were that they don't receive adequate training for those very specific platforms. For faculty, some of the most commonly expressed needs were differentiation for diverse learners, including students with disabilities, students who English is not their first language, culturally responsive teaching, and then teaching with technology. So that last need, online teaching and using technology in teaching, is what led us to develop the course we're going to talk about today.
There's a lot of research out there about the need for professional development, and as this quote mentions, probably the greatest impact is the participants that went through this course with me this summer were able to see how a course was designed and facilitated, and I was able to give them that experience that many of them hadn't had before. And that need for professional development, as Kim mentioned earlier, the 10 schools that are part of OEA are so different in size. At Schmeketa, in our Center for Academic Innovation, we have a team of 12 to 13 people. Clatsop has one person supporting their online, and 2 people at Blue Mountain. And so that difference between size, providing this professional development opportunity was really huge to some of these other schools. It also provides a great opportunity to engage with colleagues outside an institution and just be able to experience people from other schools. In this course, we had quite a few people that were teaching the same discipline at other schools. So in addition to learning about online course development, they were able to talk about their discipline specific needs and requirements as well in some of our discussions. And so being able to pair up with someone outside their school was really helpful. It also provided a little bit of safety in the fact that people could engage in this course outside their institution and not feel the pressure of needing to know everything about online course design, or not show that maybe they didn't know as much as they should know or wanted to know. And so this was really also provided a safe space for everyone to come in, and most of the participants did not have online teaching or course design background. And so they were kind of nervous about this new realm, and especially because of COVID and other things, and having to be thrown into a remote teaching already, and some of them were moving into a fully online course. This provided that safe space for them to really gain confidence. And as one research article that I found even mentioned, to gain an identity of becoming an online instructor, which if they've been teaching face-to-face, can be very different than, well, it is very different than moving to an online. So there were a lot of benefits for providing this professional development across many institutions. And here we're going to provide some input for your professional learning and have some polls. And so we'd like to know about how many hours of professional development do you engage in each year at your own institution or on your own. So feel free to weigh in. So looks like we have about 50% say 11 to 15 times a year, and 50% say more than 20. That's great, because I'm probably in that same boat of at least 11 to 15 a year myself, and find that professional development is so important. So our next question is, the professional learning you engage in provided by your employer or institution, or outside organizations, or both? And hopefully you say outside, because this is Northwest eLearn. So probably most of us are doing both. And yeah, it looks like most people engage in both types of professional learning, which is great that your school or your institution is providing some as well. Our next question, does your organization or institution currently partner with other organizations to provide professional learning opportunities for employees? And it looks like the majority of folks said yes on that one. All the respondents said yes. And yeah, as Kim mentioned in the chat window, we'd love to hear about those partnerships. So feel free to share those in the chat window. And our last question, since the start of COVID-19 pandemic, have you participated in more or less professional development compared to other years? And this poll is pretty varied in that we got respondents in all categories there. I know for me, my professional development has gone down this year just because of our department has supported remote learning at Chemeketa and the move to remote learning. So that has kind of dominated my time. But it's great to be a part of Northwest eLearn. I've presented at Northwest eLearn many times, and then to participate with the OEA course this year were my two opportunities for professional development as well. So the course that I designed and taught was Instructional Technology and Online Course Design for Community College Educators. And it was a privilege for me to work with Kim on this, because I'm an OEA member and I do feel strongly about professional development. And I always look forward to collaborating with people inside and outside my college. And so this was a great opportunity to share some of my experiences in online teaching. I've been teaching online at Chemeketa for about 8 years and did my master's degree in instructional technology and educational technology at Boise State. So I was excited to just share. And also in designing and teaching the course, I always learn a lot. I think as educators, we probably always learn new things when we're teaching a course. And so I was excited to work on this. So Kim brought me on in February to start the design process and have it ready for delivery and teaching the course during summer. And my goal when designing courses and working with faculty are really kind of 3 different things that I have mentioned there on the screen, to really make it student focused. And by that, I mean, it's easy in all the instructional design work that I do or in my own teaching, it's really easy to get close to the material. And I really wanted it to be student focused so that it was easy for them to navigate the course, that the design was clean, that the material was relevant. We were really combining kind of 2 different things here. We were talking about instructional technology and specifics of different types of media and things like that, but then also talking about the pedagogy of online course design and really what that meant to shift into teaching online. And then just thinking about backward design. So really working backwards from what I wanted those participants to be able to know and do once they left the course in their own course design, and really developing towards that. And then just having organized learning content, like I said, having a really clean design. I know a lot of research shows that how a course is designed has an impact for student learning. And so I wanted it to be organized so that it was easy to navigate. It was chunked out so that participants, I know they were going to be busy with other things going on, so that they could come into the course, find what they needed, do different activities at different times, and then come back and keep going and not feel like it was too overwhelming, and that it was all really manageable. In thinking about also the design of this course, there were some challenges. So some of the schools are like Chemeketa and Lane are Google schools, and others aren't. So thinking about the types of technology that I was going to be introducing was somewhat of a challenge, because I couldn't be specific to only what I know faculty have access to at Chemeketa. And then just the number of LMSs that all the different schools were using as well. So, and then we were also using OBA, that's the learning management system that OEA uses. And so that was going to be a new LMS for the participants. It was a new LMS for me to learn and design in. But just thinking about all of the different learning management systems that people could be using. So really trying to make everything LMS agnostic, as I would say. So on the online course design, it was really more focused on that pedagogy and not this is how you do something in Canvas or Blackboard or whatever it is. Then also just thinking about the needs of part-time versus full-time faculty, and OEA is really committed to supporting both part-time and full-time faculty, and their needs are very different. And a lot of the part-time faculty within OEA are teaching at multiple schools as well. So just that challenge of working with those 2 groups. And then just thinking about institution specific access. Some of the instructors that were in our courses didn't have access to their learning management system during the summer. Some did. And thinking about their course design and how they were sharing out materials, when it would be how I could provide feedback when their materials would be behind a different LMS that I didn't have access to, and how we did that, how we were able to access that. But then some of the benefits of this were thinking about that it was a fully online format. So it was providing that experience for the participants to, in some cases, take their very first online class and learn about online teaching and the instructional technology that might go with it. We were able to provide graduate credit through Western Oregon University. So if participants wanted that, they could get that as well. It really was based in pedagogy and not LMS specific, as I mentioned. And then the other benefit was in Oregon, we have the Oregon Community College Distance Learning Association, and all 17 community colleges in the state of Oregon are a member of that. So the 10 participating schools in OEA also benefit from that organization, and that provides for some consortial pricing on media like Zoom or Kaltura Media Server, some captioning and things like that. So in that regard, I was able to bring in specific technologies like Kaltura, or being able to have videos captioned and share that with these participants, because I knew that they would have access to those materials. And then moving into teaching the course, we ended up having 2 sections. It was a pretty popular class. We had 46 participants total from 8 of the 10 community colleges. And Kim brought on someone from Clackamas Community College that I knew through our Octella group. And so she and I was able to share what I had designed in the course and work with her to get her up to speed for teaching that her section as well. So the course was really broken into what you see on your screen there, some weekly discussions where I had some topics for them to consider, some materials to review as far as some journal articles or different readings, and then share their thoughts on that. Provided some narrated lectures and even a few TED Talks about the use of technology and the importance of online instruction. And then provided virtual office hours, what I call happy hour. I would do them in the evening from 6 to 7. And I did that about 4 times throughout the term. And those turned out to be hugely popular. Had a lot of participants each week, and I kept the virtual office hours. I told the participants that I didn't have an agenda. We could talk about anything related to the class or online teaching. If they found something outside the class that they thought was beneficial, we could, talk about that. And it was just a really great time for all the participants who would come on to just talk about their experience, talk about what was happening at their school. And most of the time, I just sat and listened and let them do a lot of the talking, and then would answer questions or jump in as need be. But it was kind of just a nice time for everyone to get to know one another, and again, talk about their discipline-specific requirements. We had some ESOL instructors at various schools, and so they have some very specific needs, and it was just a great time for them to be able to connect and get to know one another. And then just weekly emails. Every week in any course that I teach online, I always send out a weekly email on usually Sunday night or Monday morning that just is what's coming up, some things to be thinking about, remind them to ask questions if they had them, and that I was available. And I think that's the other piece of teaching this course, is I was very active in the course, so provided a lot of feedback. I did have narrated lectures. They were short, probably 8 to 10 minutes tops, but I had at least one narrated lecture every week, and a lot of times those were about a specific maybe piece of technology, like using Kaltura and Kaltura Capture, and how they might use that in their online class. And then maybe another week it might be paired with a TED Talk or something like that. And as Kim mentioned, when she created the 2 sections, she tried to put faculty from the same discipline in the same section. So that was really helpful. I know that in addition to having some ESOL, I also had some automotive instructors that were now being thrown into this remote environment and needing to be able to provide things online. And this was a great resource for them to be able to talk offline or in discussions about how they might deliver course materials and things like that. So thinking about some of the lessons learned. So we offered this course in an 8-week term, and we did that because at Schmeketa, most of our courses are 8 weeks. And so I was teaching a course at Schmeketa and I was teaching this course. And so it paired well for that logistically. And it was good and bad. It was good that most of the participants left wanting more, which is always good. It was bad because it was summer and it was 8 weeks and people have lives and families and vacations. And so it was difficult, but it was also good. I think just thinking about some of the lessons learned, offering it in 10 weeks might be better. And having a couple weeks of what I would call catch-up time because of the vacations and family responsibilities, a few people got behind and they felt really bad that they got behind. And even though I said, you have time to catch up or don't worry about it, you know, this is your own professional development, it's not graded. They really had a sense of responsibility that they wanted to finish the class. And so several participants finished after the 8-week term and we left the course open so they could go in and complete some of those things. So I think just extending it to 10 weeks, but still having 8 weeks of content and then allowing those catch-up times, those 2 different weeks of catch-up time in there if people needed it. Then just also reviewing the course content, and by that I mean, we did have really 2 specific topics. We were talking about specific technology, but then also talking about the pedagogy of online instruction. And so really thinking about how those blended together, because some people really got into the technology piece because they were teaching remote. Some people really got into the online course design because they were going to be teaching a fully online course. And some people felt like it was a little too much for them and they weren't sure what they should focus on. And so that's where I kind of helped direct the students and tried to find out some of their needs. But just kind of going through that content again and really making sure, like I said earlier, it's easy to get close to it. And a lot of the course content that I provided during this class, I've been using in other courses at Schmeketa, and so it was really familiar to me. And a lot of these participants, it was their first online class. And so even that was a little overwhelming for them of just being able to navigate a new LMS and how to do discussions or how to use Big Blue Button, which was the conferencing tool that we were using in OBA, and those types of things. And then just providing more student choice. I always think it's good to give students choices, and most of the assignments or activities that I had each week, it was one type of thing, and I think I would go back and change that up so that they would have an option to choose. Because although this was about online course design and teaching online, not every participant was going to be teaching an online class. Some of them wanted to just ramp up their skills for their remote teaching. So I would probably go back. Hopefully we don't have a pandemic the next time this course is taught, but I probably would provide some kind of option for online and remote teaching to give those participants more options. And non-graded items, you're probably wondering what that means, but I really went through this course thinking, okay, I don't want, nothing is really graded. The students were completing an e-portfolio for their grad credit. through Western Oregon University. And so I had set up everything as non-graded, which really turned out to be a logistical nightmare because the way OBA worked, it was just better to give a grade, because when I did provide feedback and it was ungraded, students or participants didn't realize that I had provided feedback. They were kind of expecting to see some kind of grade or points. And so I think going back and just changing that in the future so it'd be easier to go through. It was a little bit hard in determining the students that were going through for grad credit. I really had to go through and look at each item that they had completed and make sure that everything was done, as opposed to just going into the grade center. So little things like that. Are there any questions so far? Did I miss anything? I've been talking quite a bit.
Colin, so there's two really great questions before we move forward. The first is, how well attended were your virtual office hours? And this person says, I have had little success with anyone showing up.
I did office hours 4 times during the term. I had originally said that I was going to do it 3, and it got so popular that I ended up adding 1 more. And in my section, I had between 5 and 10 people every week. And I told them, and the reason between 5 and 10, I told them that I would be online for an hour. They didn't have to stay an hour. So some people would come on really just to socialize and meet each other and chat, maybe ask a question, and then they had family responsibilities or had other things to do, and so they might leave. Some people would stay the entire hour. And a lot of it really was just more social time. In my own courses, so at Chemeketa, I teach a first-year experience course, and I teach a Ed 235 Technology for Educators course. And I do virtual office hours in both of those, and it varies for me as well. In my first-year experience class, I do it earlier in the term because they're new to college and I want to offer that support. And I did it last week, and I didn't have anyone come online from my 2 sections. Other terms, I've had 10 people in my FYE class the first week come online. So I think it varies, but I think it is important to provide. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Colin. And then one more question right now. Were your activities collaborative? Also, was there engagement between the learners?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the activities were individual, but I did provide opportunities for them to share what they were working on. So in the case of 1 week, we were talking about creating instructional media specifically. So we were talking about creating screencasts or narrating lectures, different types of tools that they could use. And so I had them narrate a short lecture, ask them to keep it, 5 to 8 minutes, and then share that out if they felt comfortable, and get some feedback, because I felt like it was important for them to get feedback from each other as well as to get ideas. And so they would work on something on their own, but every week they had the opportunity to share it out. And that wasn't a requirement because I didn't want to put anyone on the spot, but most everyone would share out what they were creating and then would share, feedback with each other as well. The other piece of that is most of the participants, even if they weren't getting the graduate credit, were developing an e-portfolio. And that was just for them to be able to share some of what they were working on in their online course design pieces. And so that also was an opportunity for them to share what they were working on in their portfolios and get feedback, not only from me, but from each other. So that was really, I think, important. The other piece of the interaction, in addition to those discussions where they could share something specific, like a screencast, I had discussions where they were reading different articles or chapters from a textbook or things like that, and then sharing some of their thoughts or lessons learned, or even sharing some of their experiences, good, bad, or otherwise, if they had taken an online class or if they had taught online before. So just providing that student-to-student interaction in addition to what I was providing to them as well. Any other questions, Kim?
No, not at this time.
There was another comment in there about the office hours and changing office hours to something more social like coffee hour or happy hour to boost participation. So in my FYE course, I do call it happy hour, and then I put virtual office hours in parentheses, just so students are aware what it is. But I also let students know what office hours are. Sometimes they don't actually realize what office hours are. And I called, in this course, I did call it happy hour. And I think that could have boosted participation because people really did come on to socialize and get to know one another. And that just kind of built the camaraderie and the confidence, because some participants would share that this was a little overwhelming, and someone else might jump in and say, hey, I'm in the same boat. You know, I did this, or I tried this, or this is how I'm getting organized. And so a lot of that confidence came from the participants socializing as well.
So in our course evaluation data, as Colin said at the beginning, it was confirmed that most of the participants said that they had minimal to average levels of experience with educational technology, teaching online, online course design. That being said, it was interesting to me to see that there were some people who came into the course with quite a bit of experience, and then the people on that sort of lower end of the spectrum, we did have some people like Colin was referring to, who had extremely limited experience with technology. So it was sort of eye-opening to see sort of the level of differentiation needed, even at this level with faculty and staff. In the community college environment. So I think that provides us a future challenge to work with. But some of our other data, 100% of the survey respondents said that they gained new information. 94% learned useful strategies to design and structure effective online courses, and 94% said that they felt they learned things that would improve student learning. So we were really pleased with the success of this course. But we'd also like to get some feedback from all of you in our efforts to keep improving. So one of the questions Colin and I had for you was, what are the barriers to learning about educational technology, learning management systems, online teaching, online course design, either that you experience or you see your colleagues experiencing? So again, like, what are the barriers to learning about those things?
Feel free to share in the chat any of the barriers that you might be thinking about for what Kim mentioned.
Yeah, and while you're thinking, I can sort of reiterate some of the barriers that Colin mentioned in terms of the support available at institutions and how that varies greatly. Also, what I have seen with some of our members, and I know, well, my background, I previously worked in higher education before coming to OEA. So I was faculty and a dean in higher ed, in community colleges and public and private universities. But anyway, so what's available for part-time faculty can sometimes be quite a bit less than for full-time faculty, so that can be a barrier, as well as professional development that you have to pay for, and whether your institution supports that for you. How much is in the budget to support both full-time faculty and part-time faculty? For professional development, I know years ago when I was part-time faculty, I didn't get any professional development funds. So the cost can also be a barrier.
Kim, we had a couple responses in chat. So time is a barrier.
Yes.
And especially for part-time faculty. I know many of the part-time faculty at Chemeketa are teaching at other institutions. And so just that lack of time. Even full-time faculty, though, they may be teaching a full load in just the time. Another great comment was not knowing what is out there. And that is huge, because sometimes along with the time, we may not have the time to find out what's out there or know what's going on. Limited support from the institution, e-learning teams for specific tech tools. That could be, I could see that could be really huge. And especially at some of the schools where maybe the e-learning department is 1 or 2 people. That could really be a challenge. Thank you for sharing. Oh, another one was time, no instructional designer at our college. Lack of experience as an online student. Yeah, learned about taking an online course or learned about course design from taking courses themselves. And lack of support for integration with the LMS. That was a challenge for some of our participants. So at Chemeketa, every course and section has a shell or a course of a shell, for the lack of a better word, in Canvas. We just migrated from Blackboard to Canvas. And we've had that for 7 or 8 years because we've always used our learning management system. The grade book has been the official college grade book. Not every college participant in these courses had experience using an LMS because they weren't required to. So even knowing some of the tools and features in there was a challenge to them because they just weren't aware of it. Our next question, what are the biggest professional learning needs you or your colleagues are facing right now? And that doesn't have to be limited to online teaching or instructional technology. It could really just be any. What are the biggest professional learning needs you or your colleagues are facing right now?
And I'm typing that into the chat for that request.
Oh, and we have some good ones coming in. Dealing with students with high anxiety and creating accessible content. Redesign assessment. Students with high anxiety is really huge. I know I deal with that in my first year experience course. And at Chemeketa, our counseling department and student services department is trying to do more professional learning for our faculty and support them on the needs of students, and that is one topic that they're covering. Creating accessible content is huge, just for universal design for learning and thinking about making sure that everything is accessible. Again, at Chemeketa, we have the benefit of having in our Center for Academic Innovation, one of my faculty colleagues is our accessibility advocate. So she works very closely providing training and support for our online instructors, and then working with our student accessibility office as well. But that really is huge. There are some great comments coming in here. Creative assignments, so it's not just exams and papers, making videos, managing large classes, 100+ online. Wow, that would be a huge challenge. But I think that's a great one, creative assignments and giving students choice. I know, again, using another example at Chemeketa, our Writing 122 courses online have moved to a multimodal assignment. And so giving those students the opportunity to go beyond just writing a paper, creating a website, creating a video, creating a podcast, those different types of things to give them some student choice. How to adapt to meet student needs when they lack connectivity or technology, I think is huge, because there are so many students that are probably accessing online courses via their phone. And I know in our community college district, we're in 3 different counties, and one of them, Yamhill County, is very rural in certain areas. And so students don't have a lot of connectivity. And so that's huge. And then another great comment, providing student accommodations remotely. This is great feedback, because this, Kim, will provide opportunities for professional learning through OEA.
Yeah, and it's interesting because almost everything that's coming up in the chat are things that we're talking about, and either providing or planning or trying to provide professional learning for through that spectrum, pre-K through community college. So someone mentioned, the anxiety and trauma-informed pedagogy. We do a lot of trauma-informed professional learning. And unfortunately, with COVID, we've seen even greater disparities around trauma and greater disparities with access to technology. So those are, huge issues for all of us to be grappling with. Universal Design for Learning will be offering some professional learning on that in the winter semester. As well, the assessment, so we're running assessment virtual learning community right now to help educators build those performance assessments in the remote and distance learning environment. So, so this is great feedback. Thank you for all of that.
Yeah, this is really, really good feedback.
So we have one last question, which is, how can we all work together to support less resourced schools and faculty? What other partnerships might be possible? And I'm going to type that in the chat so you can read that question as well.
Yeah, thank you. I missed that question. Sorry, I had to disappear. I forgot to plug in my laptop and it's about ready to die. That would not be good.
I do think this partnership was fairly unique, and as a union representing people across the state and all different institutions, I feel like it was sort of a perfect opportunity to build a partnership like this. But and I see many K-12 educators would appreciate some professional development opportunities. Yes. And that is actually most of our opportunities so far have been in the K-12 environment.
just thinking of this, the question, Kim, that you posted, how can we all work together? So in addition to the OEA collaboration for those 10 schools in Oregon, we also, as I mentioned earlier, have our Oregon Community College Distance Learning Association. So there is a lot of sharing there as well. So we have some consortial pricing, like I mentioned, for captioning service, for Kaltura licensing and Zoom licensing and things like that. But then that is also another way that the colleges can all share what they're working on, some of their challenges. The group meets quarterly, and so it's an opportunity to kind of come together and talk about what each school is addressing, or LMS migrations, or all those different types of things. Ocdela needs to have a newsletter because sharing only happens when you see someone. That is true. And we could probably do, Ocdela, we could probably do more on the website with some kind of news and updates and electronic newsletter. That's a great suggestion.
So in addition to some of the professional development I was just mentioning, we are planning on running this course again next year. At this point, we're deciding whether to run it in winter and summer, or multiple sections in summer again. It seems that most faculty have time over the summer, although there are some of our members who have really immediate needs around this learning on instructional technology and online course design. So we're still thinking about that. You know, to meet some of those other needs, those technology needs, so back from the needs assessment for our classified staff expressing needs around specific platforms. And we're seeing that with our faculty members as well. So when an institution moves to a new LMS, or again, when there's specific platforms for whatever reason that that our members need support with. So we're thinking maybe about doing some peer mentoring, some small groups, some one-on-one peer mentoring. And then another thing that we're noticing, not surprisingly, a lot of people are getting burned out on Zoom. So spending all day on a computer is very new to a lot of people. And so in terms of professional development, the motivation for, okay, now I'm going to spend an hour or two in a Zoom meeting after I've been, you know, working in virtual meetings all day. So there's some burnout there. So we're thinking about how can we do more things similar to our self-paced modules. So where there's some flexibility and you can take on some professional development in smaller chunks, right? So things like universal design for learning. Maybe it's not going to look like a full course, an 8-week course on universal design for learning, but maybe we can chunk that out and reduce the, you know, both the cognitive load, but also that the commitment to being online for more hours. So those are some of our thoughts moving forward. And I think at this time we are ready to take any additional questions that you might have. And I see one question is, how would your campus pay you for teaching a self-paced course? So I'll answer that, and then I'll let Colin answer, because there's probably, we have maybe different perspectives around that. So we have self-paced modules right now. So they're not a full course. Again, they're these like smaller chunked learning. So for example, we have one on Remote Learning 101, which is for people who are brand new to technology and teaching in a remote or distance way. And then we have one on trauma-informed remote learning. And then one specifically on communication and collaboration tools. So all of those self-paced modules, there's no facilitator at all. So we load someone into the learning management system, we enroll them in the module, they complete it on their own, they receive a certificate of completion, they do the evaluation, all of it is independent. Colin, have you experienced any self-paced courses that do have an instructor?
Yeah, so at Chemeketa, we offer a course called the eLearn Institute, and I call it moderated self-paced. So myself and a colleague facilitate the 4-week, 5-week course, and so anyone that is going to teach online at Chemeketa is required to take it. And part of that online teaching, for the first time, there is a stipend or an online teaching differential. So they get a stipend for that first course that they develop, and it covers their taking that training. And it's self-paced in that there are 5 required modules, and students can work through material more quickly or less quickly. It's up to them. And then there are 3 optional modules that they can go through. And so my colleague and I just facilitate some of the discussions and answer questions, but it really is just an opportunity for them to work through that on their own. And then the other one that we offer is a hybrid course development workshop. And that's for anyone that's going to teach a blended or hybrid course. And again, it's one of my other colleagues facilitates it, but again, it's kind of somewhat self-paced in that people can move through it at their own leisure. And now that we've migrated to Canvas, we have a Canvas for Instructors course, which is completely self-paced, and all faculty have access to that. We just enrolled all faculty into it, so it's not term-based. They'll have access to that workshop, and they can go back over and over again and just go through those materials to get really familiar with the specifics of Canvas as well.
Some questions in the chat. Do you track participation for a self-paced course? Do you need to determine completion? And I'm assuming that's for the courses you were talking about, Colin.
For the hybrid workshop and our eLearn Institute, we do track completion because they are requirements for teaching in those modalities, either blended or fully online. So we do, and they will get a certificate when they complete. The Canvas for Instructors course, they can earn a badge. And so we have it set up. There's 3 different modules in there, and they could earn a badge for any of those or all 3. And that's really the only, we're not really tracking that so much, but it's just a way for them to earn that badge.
And there's a comment about the pay for faculty has been the holdup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with moderated self-paced courses. Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Yeah, so the question came in, when will you offer this course next? And we're definitely going to offer it next year. And we're still deciding the timing of that. We will definitely offer at least 1 section over the summer, potentially another section earlier in 2021, or multiple sections over the summer.
And how are you going to advertise that?
Yeah, so all of our courses right now are offered just to OE members. So we do targeted outreach to all of our members when we're offering professional development.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I'm watching the clock. We are about at 11 o'clock. So thank you so much, Kim and Colin, for sharing your work. This is super helpful, and your contribution to the community is very valuable. Thanks everyone for taking the time and joining us today. We're going to close the webinar now, but if you have any questions or follow-up comments, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out directly to Colin and Kim or Ananina and I. So thank you. We'll see you in some other sessions. We have 2 more left in this series. We're almost done for this year. Well, we're going to close for now.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.